And there we have it, the intro of the century. And currently the kite surfer of the moment, Joshua Emanuel. How are you?
Yeah, doing very well. Thanks to yourself, Eddie.
I'm doing great. So nice to see that you are still alive after all these expeditions that you've been on.
Yeah, there've been a couple surprising ones, unexpected on a trip to Europe. But yeah, definitely stoked to still be in one piece and ready for the next adventure.
Amazing. So, Josh, we are going to talk tonight about the business of kite surfing. This is a business show where we try to delve into the mindset of business people, and in your case, sportsmen, sports people, and sports business people. So, welcome to the show. And if you wouldn't mind just giving the viewers a little bit of an introduction into who you are and what you do.
Sure. So yeah, just to start off, I've grown up kite surfing in Durban, South Africa. Yeah, I started when I was 10 years old. I had a group of friends that were sort of in the industry, and sort of picked it up as a hobby initially. Did it for about 3 or 4 years. Stopped kiting for probably about 2 years, I would say, due to school and stuff like that. Not enough time to sort of even kite. And then, when I started kiting again around 2010 was where I was started getting a bit better within the sport. And it was 2012, 2013 that I started to get my first recognition within the sport. And then was meant to compete for the first time in King of the Air in 2013. But 2 weeks before the event, I ended up fracturing my tibia, blowing my ACL, as well as blowing my meniscus in my knee. So that was also one of my longest, most mentally challenging recoveries that I've ever been through within this sport. I think mainly also due to it being my first, as well as first time experiencing it, and also just as I was about to enter into the professional side. And then sort of became in the professional side from 2014, where I competed for the first time in King of the Air, followed by a couple more events. Then Megaloop Challenge in the Netherlands opened up, which I ended up winning in 2017. I've also got a fourth position there and a fourth in King of the Air for my best results in my bigger events. And then in the last couple of years, things have also, as you've been in the industry for quite a while now, and as you say, like creating a brand for yourself so that, the later on in life you move, you're not necessarily focused on not necessarily being in the competition side of kite surfing. Started a business in South Africa, in Durban. Started with a shop and a school. We're now doing safaris into Mozambique, throughout South Africa, and looking obviously to expand those further in the coming years.
It's amazing. And you also recently jumped 36.2 meters, which is the highest ever, which makes you currently, I mean, people say, what about 40 meters? I mean, forget about that. 36.2 is unachievable. So currently you're number one in the world. You're currently the best in the world at being able to jump the highest, because you've jumped the highest. So that's quite amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll tell you what we're going to talk tonight about is the career, the business of what you do. And so that sort of lays the ground for who you are. So thanks for that intro. Now, in any business, who you work with is so key, because if you take what you do seriously, you want to be successful. You don't want any stuff ups. You want people who also take what they do very, very seriously. Okay. Because the ramifications of success are that you can succeed, and the ramifications of choosing a cuck partner is that you will fail, they will fail.
Yeah.
So you've got a sponsor, you've got a great sponsor, a partner, Core Kite Surfing, I think they called. I think the name itself is what? It's Core Kite Surfing.
Yeah. Core Water Sports.
Core Water Sports. Okay. Based out of Germany.
Correct. Out of Fehmarn, in the gone blank. I think it's north of Germany, south of
Okay.
Germany.
So the question is always, what came first, the phenomenal kite surfer or the phenomenal kite? You know, it's such a like, would you have jumped as high if you didn't have the kite, or would that kite have been able to go just as high if it wasn't for you? It's not what we are. You know, we're not going to answer that
Yeah,
question now. You know, because it works both ways. Okay,
for
there's no
sure.
doubt about it. But that's what makes a great partnership. Now,
Yeah.
please just tell me a little bit about your thinking when choosing that partner.
Yeah. So for me, I think it comes down to a couple different factors. I mean, if I just look, for instance, if I were to speak of myself as, let's look at my history within brands in the industry. Initially, I started riding. My first, not contract, but my first sponsor, local sponsorship, was with F1 and Mystic, who I was with for almost 5 years. Moved up slightly, obviously, from a local sponsor to national, then speaking with international. Sort of the same with Mystic. One of the key things, then obviously from Mystic and F1, I moved to Core, and then moved across to Brunati as well. And I think a key thing for you as a brand, as yourself, is to know that, you know, if you can prove a couple different things behind you as a person, and in the sense of loyalty, you know, the sense of what you're going to do and what you can give back to the brand. I think those are two big things a brand pays a lot of attention to. And if you were to look at my track record, I've only been with two brands, that I'm still currently with the one, and the same for an apparel side of the industry. And I think when it comes to choosing a rider, it often comes to looking at what the rider has to give to the brand and what the rider can do for the brand. Also, you know, would you as a person want to go invest tens of thousands of euros into somebody when you know that over the last 3 years he's been with two different brands, which means what are the chances you survive more than a year or two with that rider? And I think that's a key thing to always remember is, you know, showing loyalty, and also with loyalty comes a lot more things. You know, you become a lot more connected to the brand that you're working with, and where it, you know, may start off as, oh, these guys sponsor me, but 6 years, 7 years down the line, yes, they're still my sponsors. But if you were to look at the bigger picture of what I've gained from that brand and what the brand has gained from me, is huge. I mean, for me personally, with Core, my life lessons, a lot of big things I've learned in business, in dealing with customers and stuff like that, have come from them, and the people within that brand. And I think that's also a big thing, is you learn to work with the people a lot more the more time you get to spend with them. And if you're chopping and changing between brands, there's no time for you to build yourself up as a brand. And building yourself up as a brand comes in many different forms, ways. Um, you know, whether you're using social media as your main way of trying to get yourself out there as a rider, whether you competing, in the sense of you winning, you know, you're getting results, and you know, results often give you great publicity. Breaking world records gives you great publicity. And that publicity is all about how you utilize that publicity and what you do with it. When it comes to also setting up clinics, coaching, interacting with the people, creating experiences that people won't forget. And that's where all taking all those things and connecting them together is what helps build yourself as a brand and yourself within a brand.
I agree. For us, we service insurers and banks as a consulting business, and the people that work with us are our partners. And we also have other consulting firms overseas in their territories. We consider them our partners. We choose them very, very carefully for the way that they conduct themselves, for their
Sure.
reliability. When we're sitting in a meeting, do we all work together? Are they going, if they're going to embarrass us, we have to find that out right at the beginning, and we can't touch them.
Yeah.
So choosing the right partner is crucial if you're a global, we're a consortium, so it's kind of like the same thing. Okay. So I'm a firm believer that a healthy body is a healthy mind. And I couldn't have realized that. I mean, I've realized that over the years, but I recently went overseas for like a month and a half, almost 50 days with my wife and all the kids. We stayed in a small flat. I was working flat out. The kids were full time. We didn't have any assistance like we do here back home. And I couldn't work. I couldn't exercise. I couldn't have a healthy body. And I definitely didn't have a healthy mind. And so tell me a little bit about your understanding of your mental well-being, your what you put into your body, the exercise that you do to make you match ready, to make you strong, to make you awake, to make you creative in what you're doing.
Yeah, for me, exercise definitely plays a huge role. And like you say, it's very easy to get caught up in a busy lifestyle where you feel you don't necessarily have the time, you if you want to call it that, for yourself to train. But yeah, for me, I've definitely seen where when I'm not training and not putting in as much time as I would, you know if I were to be dead honest, if I were to look at my training 3 years ago prior to COVID, I would say it was a lot more intense to the training maybe that I'm putting in right now, over this last year or two. But it doesn't mean that I've cut it out completely. It's something that's still super important, even not on a professional scale. If for your average rider, that's where you're going to start picking up your smaller injuries and stuff that's going to set you back longer for not exercising. Maybe you would train 5 times a week, but try get in, if it's one of those crazy weeks, at least 2 or 3 sessions somewhere. But yeah, if I were to talk about my pre-training to events, I would say I'm sometimes training twice a day, up to three. You know, pre training sometimes twice a day, 3 times a week. But 6 days a week I would be in the gym or cardio. On my two, cardio for me is probably one of the biggest. Just where you look at competing, it's 14 minutes. That's in a sense kind of the longest 14 minutes you will experience, just because it's just go go go. There's no time to really catch a breath during competition. um yeah, and eating wise, for sure, I like to really cut down on red meats. For me personally, is what I eliminated, not completely. Just over the last couple of years, I've slowed used to eat a lot more red meat than what I do currently. And I find, for me personally, but this is a topic that could go in many different directions, just due to body types and people and blood types and what some bodies like and what some don't. But yeah, for me personally, red meat, cutting that helped with my energy levels. I was a lot more on white meats and veg side of things as well. But yeah, that's for me sort of where I would get to with the training side of things. The mental side, I've never, for me, the mental game has always been a personal thing. I've never had a mental coach. Never really worked with psychologists much, especially within the sport industry. But I think now, if you were to look at the way the sport's gone, I think it's stepped up hugely. If you look at a lot of the riders now, a lot of them have mental coaches. A lot of them have coaches traveling with them. I would definitely say the kite surfing industry's moved, maybe from the sense of like, you know, athletes to serious professional athletes now, where the guys are putting, I know, I mean, this last season in Cape Town, I would go kite for an hour and a half, then go have a break, have lunch, come back an hour and a bit later for my next session. And the likes of Luca, Jason, all the younger riders are still in the exact same place I left them when I went for lunch. They're still training. They're putting in 7 to 8 hours on the water on a windy day. And then they will still probably that evening go to gym. So the level that it's got to now is just really, really, really stepped up within the industry.
Well, the result of that is as kite surfing becomes more popular and the money comes in more and people start to understand its impact on greater society, being more professional and upping your game and being better is really what it means to be a business professional, even as a sports person as well.
But that's where, as you say, more money comes in. That's the sad reality and part of the reason, not part of the reason, but a reason to also why that I'm not going to probably be competing next year. For me, one, to keep up with the younger generation now is quite hard. And for me, I'm really focusing more time to my business than to being a professional athlete that competes, where I would rather be a professional athlete that's on the free ride content side and chasing storms, doing cool things, and really enjoying and still producing good content, where the younger generation now, it's a lot more time and stuff put into that. So
Yeah,
for
so
me,
that's yeah, so that's because at the moment your business side of kite surfing is on the sponsorship side. Once you start to connect the dots
yeah,
and you be more involved on the business side of the sport, then it's not as much about your riding itself, but more about you in the ecosystem itself.
for sure. But yeah, just with the money getting pumped in, you would expect much bigger prize money within the industry. And if we
Sure.
look at the growth of prize money over the last, let's go, 5, 6 years, it's not substantial. I
Yeah.
know that the card market's been through bad times, but if you were to look, I know if you look at pay-per-views or, that side of things, versus surfing versus kiting, currently I think oaks that are coming last in this World Surf League get paid more than the oak that comes first in King of the Air or any big air event.
I'll tell you
Not
why.
to
I'll tell
not to
I'll tell you
name.
why. It's because the sport itself is more that sport, the surfing sport is more so on the apparel,
No,
clothing,
no, for sure.
lifestyle side of things. And that's where
No,
most of the
no,
money actually comes from.
for sure. But I mean, sports within general, and you look, for me, you look at when you're younger, you don't see it as much. The older you get, obviously, the more you see it and the more you're looking at the finance side behind things that you're doing. Where when you're younger, you're chasing a dream, you're living in the now. And obviously, as the older you get, you need to start living in what's to come. And for me, that's where I've made that decision, that I'm still going to chase storms, still do crazy things, but at the same time, I'm building a business that will carry on. Even if my name were to disappear, it's still something that will carry on going. And yeah, I mean, we started Fruit Loops in 2020 in the middle of COVID. Literally, I think 4 months after we went into lockdown, we were putting a company together, and this was our great idea. And it started off as a kite shop, an online store. We did lessons and stuff through, and then now we taking guys on safaris. And I mean, yeah, I leave on Saturday to Mozambique. I'll be there for just over a month or close to a month and a half. We've got over 50 guests that are coming over 3 different trips. So that's where, you also, for me, I've always said, and I've said this to every young rider, is that in your life, within the kiting world, it's going to go up, flat, down. And that's, you're going to be on a rise for, I could call my rise 6 years, 7 years, but at some point you're going to plateau where you're not necessarily winning, you're not getting results, you're not at the top because there's the next 17-year-old that's coming up quickly, as quick as you
And
went up when you were
and
18.
unfortunately, these days they're 13 years old.
Yeah, I mean, it's King of the Air, the biggest kiting event in the world, under 18 podium.
Yeah. Okay,
So
hold
yeah,
on,
for
hold on.
me, yeah,
Let's go back. Hold on, let's go back. I've got a lot to discuss. I hear exactly what you're saying. Now, what I also want to talk about is the mental preparation before a big event. And when I talk about a big event, I'm not talking about a competition. I'm talking about, for us, it is we are going to start building a product. We are going to do a presentation of a product.
yeah,
We are doing something new. We're going on a new marketing campaign, something, whatever. It's a big event for us as a business. We're mentally preparing, my time in the gym, all these things that I do are really about pulling that trigger.
yeah,
So tell me a little bit about a big event would be like a strong wind day. Like the other day was like over 60 knots. So that's like
yeah.
120 kilometers an hour of wind. I mean, it's more than hurricane weather. There you are. You know that there's strong wind coming. Tell me a little bit about um,
So
the day before in the morning of that big event. Like, what are you thinking? What are you hoping to achieve? You trying not to die?
to be dead honest, like, I mean, storm chases and stuff like that, the mental prep, wow, you've got 48 hours. Prepare yourself mentally and physically for a storm, and any big trip. For me, I, I must be honest, the mental side for me has never been one of my biggest struggles. Um, for me, it's an interesting one because I guess, like, coming into, say, Denmark, for me, it's making sure, knowing obviously your surroundings, like the spot. Like, I had no idea how we were going to get in, how we were going to get out. Didn't even know what the spot looked like. So we've been told this is the place to go. Um, for Denmark, there's very little prep that I could do for that. It's more just psyching yourself up, getting yourself psyched, and that you're gonna. The nice thing is the first day we had more moderate winds, 50 to 55 knots at the max. So we're out on eights. Fortunately, Martin had been there, so when we arrived at the spot, I looked at it, the beach where we first parked. There's no beach; it's just rocks. Like, you're not hectic rocks, but like pebbled beaches with bigger pebble stones, whatever you call them. And then the launch site was also a pebble beach on a pier. So that's for me the two most important things in storm chasing is getting in and getting out. Uh, on the water, there's a lot that yes that can go wrong, but for me, I think the two most dangerous times is getting in and getting out the water. Just on the basis that if something goes wrong in either of those processes, you're not in water. So that's where things tend to go wrong the quickest and probably have the bigger consequences. So it's the safety side of that, when launching, getting in, you've got people holding you down, you take as many precautionary measures as one can to play it safe. Obviously, your average person will say, well, playing it safe, you shouldn't go out. And a lot of people at the beaches advised, but this is what we're here for. So yeah,
Are
I
you
think it's
listening
more
to
just
music on the are you listening to music on the car on the way there? Are you
yeah,
screaming? What are you
definitely
doing?
music. Definitely one of my favorites, especially even talking like competition now. That's my way of switching the outside world off, and it's time for my inside world to start to ignite itself and get itself ready for what's to come.
What
So
are you
yeah,
listening
music's
to?
always. Oh
Dubstep. What are you listening to? Rock? Are you
no.
listening to we are,
Um,
what are you listening to? Tina
I
Turner?
I would say a bit of good tech, and then on the bigger storm chasers and before an event, I'd say probably a bit of psytrance is something that gets me really, really psyched and ready. Yeah, I mean, I must say for most of my events, there's been one or two songs from the trance world, if you want to call it, that really get me in a frothing mindset and super
Exactly.
super to get on the water. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great, music's one of the best distractions that you can have because you get locked into that world of music and all of a sudden your surroundings sort of, aren't really there as much. It's you and the sound that you're listening to.
When I'm in the gym and I start to realize that one of the reasons, I mean, I'm like 45, and one of the reasons why I think 45-year-olds do well is because I know it sounds stupid now, but we grew up on like Backstreet Boys,
Yeah,
and like Westlife. Now, I know that sounds like super fluffy, but if you actually, like um, understand how those songs peak, and so I think it like shapes one's character. It's just interesting. And then you've got the generation above me who peaked on rock music and like Doors type music, and it's just a different mindset. Okay.
yeah,
So now when it comes to filming and creating your own online portfolio, i.e., content creation. Okay. Now, I wrote this book called Slaying Giants in the Mega Gig Economy. I talk about disruption and I talk about how kite surfing disrupted windsurfing. No disrespect to the windsurfers. And one of the things I talk about is that business people these days can tell the world about themselves as a business professional, what they're involved in, what they do, what um, apps they're working on, what theory they're working on, the work that they've done, so that anybody looking at them can say, I can see who you are. I know who you are. I've seen your content. I'm following your story, not like I saw your CV. Now, you get that totally right. I often think about you when I'm thinking about these things because ultimately you have your own equipment, you're out there and you're bringing the viewer, you're bringing the world along on your journey as you're doing these things. I mean, one of my favorite things to watch is when you land a humongous jump and you just take the camera out of your mouth and you're like, and it just
yeah,
I'm so involved and immersed in your portfolio, which is like your shop window. So tell me a little bit about what you think of when you're creating that universe of your online persona and what you do, and it's like a notch on your belt every time you pin something down. It's not on paper. Tell me a little bit about what you think about when you're promoting this Josh Amazing Kitesurfer portfolio online.
Yeah, so I think again the key thing is having, as much as I would love to say, you know, people know me for wave riding. You know, it's not. At the end of the day, you create a persona about yourself. You know, people hear my name if they know of my name, and it's instantly will be associated to crazy kite loops and big air. And that's something that, you know, from the beginning is what I really loved. As a kid, Ruben was my go-to inspiration. You know, he chased storms, he did crazy kite loops, and that's what I always admired. And again, I would say it's following in not necessarily someone's footsteps, but creating your own legacy about it. I think also with having a persona and a specific area that you're working in, big air, as well as having yourself present in the videos is pretty big. But at the same time, when it comes to advertising and marketing and stuff like that, is having yourself present within the marketing. And that doesn't mean just like a crazy big kite loop shot, because for all I know, that could be you in that photo. There's no way of me evidently proving that it is me in that photo unless it's, you know, a super good camera that we can zoom completely in and pinpoint that it's me in that photo. And coming to videos, like not necessarily, you know, now content creation's changed completely. You know, like it used to all be Facebook, and then from Facebook it went all about Instagram, then it went all about TikTok, and now I think everyone's moving to X, the new Twitter. You know, and it's all within the different moves. The style of videos have completely changed. So where, you know, we used to post much more longer videos, like, you know, a minute video was like the perfect length to always post. And it was cool and it was never in portrait, you know, it was always in landscape. But where now everything, as we speak, you know, you're on a computer, I'm sitting on my phone. Um, and it's where everything's moved. So from being able to make videos where your face is present, your brand, you as a brand is much more present. Now it's much more like, you know, just a single video posted with cool music. And, you know, now it's trying to see how you can show yourself without competing, without any of that, just through social media, is trying to have yourself present as much as possible so that there's something to look back and resort to, that, you know, that people can be familiar with. I think plays a huge role, and also understanding the trends and what's going on within that world. But yeah, for me, I must say it is one of the harder things to understand is how the algorithms and, you know, all of that sort of work. But it's, for me, keeping yourself present and, yeah, showcasing yourself.
The way I see it is that it's not all fun and games, is that it is actually quite serious, because if you get that right and people start going on that journey with you, you know, as we move from the corporate brand world and into the you as a brand world, where people as a brand, as a business brand, become very, very useful and powerful and commercially successful, is that as they've been able to get people to go on that journey with them, then they can monetize that somehow. You know, they can actually make money
Yeah,
from it. It's not all fun and games. Otherwise, you might as well just close down an account after you've posted everything. You know, it's not really
exactly.
about getting people to join you. But that's not the case. It's very serious. You know, when you do something, you do it because you know it's like set in stone and it adds to your portfolio. And yeah, okay. So really just the last question. I've like loved talking to you a lot. You know, I've like landed your kite mid-session in King of the Air. One of the proudest moments of my life, because I think you were like swapping a board, or I think your lines had like inverted or something and you needed to like swap your line out or something. So it's the mindset of a champion, okay, which you are, in my opinion. But more than that, it is actually the humble champion mindset, okay? And what I mean by that is it is getting used to pulling the trigger, because it's really about the proof is in the pudding. I bring the pudding to the party. I'm going to do stuff because people like to eat pudding and I make pudding. So I'm going to just do it. And then when it works, like that's what I do. You know, I love it. I love you being involved with me, instead of we're so great, but then people accomplish nothing. You know, that is not
Yeah.
the humble champion mindset. Tell me a little bit, and I see that in your videos, in the way that you come across in your successes. You know, you're just trying your best, you having fun. Tell me a little bit about, because being humble is an effort, and
Yeah,
not being egotistical. Being egotistical is easy. Tell me a little bit about your mindset in just staying focused and grounded.
yeah. For me, it's something I hear a lot from people, which I do really appreciate. But I've always said, and I can almost remember the first time I said it, was many, many, many years ago, when I still lived in Durban before I moved to Cape Town, and where things really, when I left Durban and once I arrived, not arrived in Cape Town, but when I moved to Cape Town within that first year, a lot started happening for me within my career. And I knew moving to Cape Town, there was that chance of being put into a spotlight. It's the one of the biggest. I've gone blank on a name, but it's that people come to for kiting. And I always
Makers.
say offers to to be humble and to stay humble, no matter how many events I won or no matter how big I came in the industry. And I think one of the key things behind that was, if I were to step into the surf world, if I go walk around in J Bay at the surf event, someone coming up to me and, Josh Emanuel, how you doing? At the end of the day, the minute you walk away or step the kite world, you're just like the person standing there. And if you think that just because you're the number one in the kite world, you're above everybody else, you're you're not, because step out of your world and you're just a normal person again. And yes, when you're at King of the Air, yes, a lot of people come up to you and ask for a photo or an autograph, to say or to say thank you or whatever it might be. Be open to talk. There's no reason not to share. If you're so proud of what you've done, you should be proud enough to speak about it, and not in an arrogant way, but to have a conversation with somebody that would like to speak to you about whatever's happened or whatever they would like to speak to you about. So yeah, there's not much behind it for me, but that simple saying, and I say it to anyone that asks me about why I may be humble, if that's the way they feel. But yeah, it's just to remember that you're no different to the person sitting next to you. You're at the top in your sport, and you're just the normal person that's sitting next to you.
Unbelievable. We'll end it there, Josh. Just and keep on inspiring people, and can't wait to see you again on the water. Always nice, and
Yeah, looking
have a
forward to
great one.
down with
Thank
season.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Take
And
care. Thanks
thanks
for
very much
joining
for
me.
having me on. Yeah. Really appreciate it. And yeah, hopefully we can have another chat again in the future.
Thanks, Josh. Take care. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao. Bye.
Bye.